China had a crash yesterday in their stock market. You know why? Because I won Iowa.
A comment that I'm often getting regarding investing in Chinese stocks is whether or not Donald Trump is a problem for China investors. So I just got this comment also in the other day, and I want to give a brief update on that. My personal views, so these are not financial advice obviously, but just how I personally think about the situation, but also some insights that I got during my trip to Italy, where I met with investors as well. And yeah, one of them had actually some interesting insight from the bank analysts or a CEO of an Italian bank who basically told him that they're not gonna go long Chinese equities for now because they do fear that Donald Trump will be very bad for China. So we cannot deny that this is a, let's say, mass market opinion, or you know, that the general consensus currently. People are simply afraid to put in money on Chinese equities as well, because they do think if Trump is coming in, you know, he will slash Chinese stocks or the economy in many ways. There have been some announcements that he will put on tariffs that are even more harsh. And so the fear is real, right? So I cannot deny that. That's one thing. However, how I personally look at it is more facts-based. And Trump obviously already had one presidency in which he was running and very tough on China. And yeah, he now saying again that Chinese stocks are tanking because of him. If you can look at this little video, and he's kind of joking about this.
Election. I don't know if you saw yesterday. I felt very badly for them. China had a crash yesterday in their stock market. You know why? Because I won Iowa. So when people, it's true, it crashed.
And yes, he might do even more damage to the Chinese economy in the future. However, we also need to realize that during the time of the first Trump presidency, Chinese stocks, the HSI, Hong Kong Stock Exchange, has been up roughly 40% from the time when he started. And you know, this was not during the time of money printing for the coronavirus. It was even reaching highs before that. So we can say that although there has been a tough president on China, Chinese stocks have been doing quite well. Meanwhile, during the Biden presidency, Chinese stocks have sold off more than 50% if you take HSI. So even a Democratic or a Democratic Party president is not a guarantee for Chinese stocks to do real. Instead, I would even go as far and say, you know, Biden has been a terrible disaster for Chinese stocks. He's really tough, and that's oftentimes what you get, unfortunately. You're voting for something and then it's a little bit different to what you've expected. For example, here in Germany, we have famously Annalena Baerbock, which is for the Green Party, and her politician slogan during the election days was we don't want to send weapons into war zones. Now she's now doing the completely opposite, right? And you know, all I want to say here is what people say before an election isn't necessarily what they're going to do when they are in power. Trump might be very nuanced in dealing with one of the biggest economic partners if he's really getting into power. I'm not saying he will. I'm not saying I'm endorsing Trump at all. Just speaking you know, from the top of my head here, how I personally think about this. And so, you know, I think we couldn't say it's the right strategy to wait now and see what's going to happen with Trump, or, you know, there might be a further dip when Trump is coming. I think the outcome really is undefined by now. And as I said, the Biden administration has been really, really tough on China, and a terrible disaster for Chinese companies and for US-China relations. And I would say, for me personally, it would feel as a relief if Biden is gone. Who knows who else is coming? But yeah, another data point that I want to give you, in a sense, data point, is that Michael Burry, the famous investor who called out the housing crisis, the subprime crisis in the US, and while this was a big call, in which he was very right, famously, so that they made a video about it, he also has many bad calls, of course. But you know, if you're looking at his latest filings of his fund, he's now most invested in China. So his biggest positions are Alibaba and JD Stock. And that's interesting because Michael Burry is actually, when you look at the social media, somebody who's rather right-winged in political views. He's endorsing Trump. And, that's just another point of some people might be against China, right-wing, conservative, whatever, and still putting money into China. And I just want to give this to you as a way of think around it, that it's not always black and white, and we can't certainly say just because Trump might be coming around the corner, there is no future for Chinese equities in general. Although I have to agree, that's the sentiment currently in boardrooms of big banks, right? So let's see how the outcome will be ultimately. That is my view, how I personally think about it. I hope that gives you some way to think about it. Thanks for watching, and see you in my next videos.